What's up guys, my name is Ace and welcome to episode 2 of How to Dominate. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing knowledge and various tactics that will help you reach the top of every single lobby that you find yourself in while playing Capture the Flag solo. There are other ways to be successful, I just want to share what works for me, and I actually consider Capture the Flag to be one of my specialties. I'm ranked somewhere in the top 15,000 all time for this game mode, and I've only ever played Capture the Flag solo in Black Ops 2, so I think I'll be able to provide you guys with a lot of useful insight. So first up, let's go over the items that I feel are essential to my Capture the Flag success. First thing that you're going to need is extreme conditioning. I always use this every time I play Capture the Flag. I use extreme conditioning. It's extremely important to be mobile in this game mode and to be able to outrun people, so definitely extreme conditioning. And the other thing that I find essential to have in your class is either an SMG or an assault rifle if you're using lightweight. Once again, this is just because this strategy requires you to be very mobile and very versatile. So those are the two things that I consider to be essential while playing Capture the Flag. Some other things that I recommend to have though are Flak Jacket because Claymores and Bouncing Betties are very popular in this game mode. Tactical Mask because shock charges are in pretty much every Capture the Flag match you'll ever play. You're going to run into some shock charges. And if you don't want to use either of those, you can use Engineer, which is very good as well just for detecting that equipment. And one last thing is Ghost can be extremely helpful since you will be very mobile and you'll never really have to worry about popping up on the radar if you have Ghost. So now let's move on to recommended score streaks. With this strategy, you should be able to stay alive and earn the higher end score streaks as long as you're not playing against an organized team. For my headquarters strategy, I said that you want to be confident that you can earn your highest score streak at least twice in a game. For me, this rule does not apply to Capture the Flag, because in Capture the Flag, all it takes is one VSAT or Warthog or basically anything higher than that to have a guaranteed win for that round, as long as your teammates aren't completely useless. If you don't feel comfortable with the higher end streaks, then feel free to run something a little bit lower. Personally, I like to run UAV, VSAT, and K9 unit for Capture the Flag, because knowing the enemy locations in Capture the Flag is extremely crucial, and once you earn the dogs, the game might as well be over because of the respawn delay. Some of the lower kill streaks that I recommend using are the Guardian for defending your flag or cutting off an area of the map, the Hellstorm Missile for that last-ditch effort to take out enemy flag carriers, and the Lightning Strike just for its versatility and its kill potential. Because remember, Capture the Flag has an 8-second respawn delay, so every kill helps a lot. Alright, so now let's get into the tips. Let's start with the general rules that I always keep in mind while I'm playing Capture the Flag. Number 1, always take your time and try and stay alive. Don't rush in like an idiot because deaths in Capture the Flag have much higher consequences than in other game modes. I have sort of a cautious, aggressive mindset while I'm playing Capture the Flag, so it's almost like a search and destroy mindset, but a little bit more aggressive. Number 2, always pay attention to your teammates and the enemy team and know when you have to play offensively and when you have to hang back and help with the defense. If your entire team is camping your flag, you have to step up and play offensively. If most of them rush, however, you should probably consider playing a little bit more on the defensive end. This seems pretty obvious, but a lot of players are set in their ways and they'll stick to one or the other regardless of how the game is going. And finally, number 3, similar to the headquarters location, I treat flags as kill zones. So always approach them with caution and think before you go for a flag, especially when it's a drop flag out in the open. In addition, realize that a lot of players blindly rush flags, so use that to your advantage to pick up some easy kills. So now let's move on to opening routes. Opening routes are very important in Capture the Flag since there is a respawn delay. If you die in your opening route, you'll not only give the other team better map control, it'll also kill any chance for your team to build that initial momentum, and it gives the enemy that momentum instead. Even if you're planning on playing defensively, you should take advantage of an opening route that supports your team in gaining that initial map control. Then you can fall back and play a little bit more defensively. You're completely useless for the first 20 to 30 seconds of a round, depending on the map, of course, if you're simply sitting near your flag by a Bouncing Betty and waiting for the enemy to push through your teammates. I'm obviously not going to cover every route on every map or anything like that, but I'll describe the type of route you should be looking for. Basically, you want a route that's unexpected and allows you to take the enemy by surprise. So a flanking type route would work really great because you have extreme conditioning on, so you should be able to get to them before they expect you. Another option is to take a route that safely gets you to a power position where you can pick off the initial wave of enemies before pushing up or falling back. In Capture the Flag, I have 3 general roles that I'll play. There are other roles that can be played, but these ones maximize score while allowing me to adapt to pretty much any situation. So the first role is the flag runner. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Your goal here is to try and capture the enemy flag, and you just keep pushing for that enemy flag constantly. Second role is support. This is a really general role. 1 minute you could be helping clear out enemies for your flag runner, and the next you could be trying to cut off an enemy flag carrier and go for the flag return. And the third and final role that I'll play is defense. This doesn't mean that I'll camp my flag or anything. I'll just put myself in a position to effectively cut off enemy flag runners while still being in the action the whole game. Keep in mind that I'll typically play each one of these roles several times in a given round. Unless you're playing with an organized team, you shouldn't stick to just one role. If you're trying to be a flag runner but a teammate is in a better position to grab the enemy flag, then adapt into a support role to help him clear out enemies and run that flag. If you're trying to play offensively and your defense gets taken out behind you, you might want to fall back and help defend your own flag. Alright, so now let's get into the specific situations that you're going to encounter while playing Capture the Flag. So the first situation is approaching and pulling the enemy flag. Always assume there are enemies set up protecting their flag. This is where you take your time clearing out the area and planning your escape route. Sometimes you can pull that flag and get away before they have a chance to react, but make sure you have an escape route planned and some team support that will help you with this. Because once you grab that flag, all hell is going to break loose, and most, if not all of the enemy team will be after you. So if you can kill a few enemies before grabbing the flag, then you are much better off than blindly rushing that flag. Before you pull the flag, you should also be very aware of the kill feed. If you notice that a few enemies die, then you know that they are out of the fight for 8 seconds, and it might be a really good time to make your move. And if you notice that a bunch of your teammates are dying in the kill feed, it's probably not a good time to make your move just yet. Just hang out a little bit, try and clear out some enemies, but don't go for that flag pull until you have some team support. And finally, before you pull that flag, be aware of enemy equipment on and around the flag. There's almost always a shock charge or a bouncing Betty somewhere around that flag, so just have a look before you make your move. Once you've determined it's safe to grab the flag, grab it and get away while limiting the lines of sight that the enemy may have on you. Don't just pay attention to what's in front of you at this point, try and move in a way that puts cover behind you to cover your escape. The most direct route is often the worst route to take because it typically lacks cover. So get into the areas with the small spaces and the short lines of sight, and the fact that you have an SMG will really help you here. Let's look at an example of this on the map Raid. Say I want to pull the enemy flag at the Sea Domination flag, and I've decided to run the statue side of the map. Here is the most direct route to run on that side of the map. This route will get you back to your base quite fast if you survive, but the chances of you surviving are very slim because this red area here represents all of the windows of opportunity where the enemy has a very clear shot on you from just the middle of the map. As you can see, you're pretty much screwed if they have anyone mid-map that's paying attention. So now let's look at the route that I would take on that side of the map. As you can see, it's a longer route and it will definitely take me a longer time to get back to my flag. The thing about this route is, I actually have a really good chance of making it back to my flag alive, unlike the previous route. Here are the windows of opportunity that the enemy has a clear shot on me from the middle of the map. They may be able to hit me once or twice in these brief openings, but it's very unlikely that they'll kill me unless they're a really talented sniper. Now you may be thinking, what about the enemies behind you in this situation? Let's look at the first route, and say you're at this point right here, right where the B-Dom flag is. Marked in red are all of the areas behind and beside you where the enemies can easily kill you from. The small green area represents the cover that the van is giving you from behind. As you can see, you're in big trouble in this situation. That little bit of cover that van is giving you is definitely not enough. All you have to do is move like 10 feet to the side and you're dead. Now let's look at the same point on my route. I'm completely protected from the middle of the map by the statue, and I have a lot of pieces of cover behind me, like the van and the concrete pillars near the statue. There is still a little bit of a chance for the enemies to see me from behind, but they won't see much of me and it definitely won't be for long because of all of the pieces of cover. This allows me to focus most of my attention on what's in front of me, while barely having to worry at all about what's behind me. So moving on to my next point while running the flag, it's almost always best to run the flag on the side of the map rather than the center. It makes it so you only have a maximum of 3 directions to worry about. Behind you, left or right depending on the side that you run, and in front of you. It's usually best to choose the side that you came from because you've already sort of cleared that area out on your way to the flag. But don't rely on it being clear. There is a really good chance that enemies have crept in there or have spawned there. So keep your eyes out, but just know that it's usually the best bet. One of the biggest keys to my success in Capture the Flag is to not be afraid to engage in gunfights while carrying the flag. Kills while carrying a flag awards you with twice as much score, so use this to your advantage if it's safe to do so. If you have an enemy chasing you, the last thing they typically expect is for you to turn around and set up to kill them. Just make sure you have the advantage and the element of surprise in these gunfights. Oftentimes you can catch an enemy or two off guard in mid-sprint, and you can pick up an extremely easy 200 or 400 points, while at the same time making it much safer for you to get back to your base for that 200 point flag capture. Combine that with a few hundred points for kills before grabbing the flag and 50 points for pulling the flag, and you should be at like 1,000 score for that one flag run. If you play cautiously enough and repeat this, you should be earning those high score streaks in no time. Okay, so now that we've covered running the flag, let's look at supporting a teammate while he runs the flag. Most of the time, I see 1 or 2 guys running right alongside their flag carrier in an attempt to protect him. While this can work great for taking enemies head on, it's typically disastrous in most other situations, because enemies can now kill you and your flag carrier fairly easy from a bunch of other directions, because no one's really watching your back or your flank. This gives that enemy a bunch of score and takes you and the flag carrier out of the action while you wait to respawn, so it's really likely that the enemy will end up returning their flag with very little resistance. The best way that I've found to support your flag carrier is to position yourself so you're able to cut off areas of the map and watch flanks. The great thing about this strategy is that the enemies are often sprinting straight towards your flag carrier, so you can pick them off as they focus their entire attention on their flag. This of course assumes that your flag carrier has at least a somewhat clear path to get back to your flag. If you notice that the path in front of your flag carrier isn't clear, you may want to run ahead of the carrier and attempt to clear out the enemies while he stays behind you in relative safety. So your attention should be focused on ways that enemies can get to your flag carrier, rather than your flag carrier himself. Alright, so moving on, let's go over defending your flag. Even if you plan on playing really offensively, situations will arise where you need to play more on the defensive side to compensate for a lack of good defensive teammates. The most effective way to defend a flag is not to camp right beside it and look at it at all times, even if you have good cover. Not only will you be limiting the action that you see and therefore your score potential, a smart enemy player should be expecting someone to be watching the flag, so they'll be ready for you and they'll typically know exactly where to look before going to pull that flag. Instead, I like to patrol areas that are somewhat near the flag and that allow me to get to any cutoff point that I want. There's actually no need to watch the flag because the enemy reveals his exact location when he grabs it. In fact, I'll actually allow enemies to grab the flag, but I make sure that they don't have a chance of escaping. This may seem kind of counterproductive, but when the average player is carrying a flag, they'll typically run straight back towards their base and they won't want to get into any gunfights. If you can predict their escape route, they can be very easy to pick off. Players are much more dangerous when they aren't carrying flags, so why not give them the flag and take them out as they desperately try to sprint away. This defense strategy also awards you with more points for not only killing the flag carrier, but also for returning the flag, which is really nice because defensive roles typically don't see as many points as someone who's constantly running the enemy flag. One last thing to mention is that it's almost always a bad idea to chase an enemy flag carrier. It's very rare that you'll actually catch up to them, and oftentimes they'll have teammates covering their back. Instead, try to predict his movements and cut him off if possible. So basically, that explains how I'm able to be so successful at Capture the Flag on a very consistent basis. This combination of tips and tactics allows me to typically end up with double the score of any other player in the game. So I think that there definitely has to be some merit to the way I approach this game mode. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys next time.